You wake to silence, but it isn't peace. The air tastes of metal, and the earth beneath you hums as if something ancient stirs below. The sky is pale, colorless, the calm before violence decides to take shape. You don't see them yet, but you feel them. The storm has already begun to breathe. Before we ride into this history, take a moment. Look around you. Where are you watching from tonight? Is it quiet where you are? Because across centuries, on this same earth, silence was the most dangerous sound of all. If you're fascinated by these forgotten stories, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Our community of history seekers stretches from Jakarta to Johannesburg, from Rome to Rio, uncovering the echoes that still haunt us all. Now, the year is 1526. The mist over the Danube plains moves like breath. At first light it is almost beautiful. Then the rhythm begins. Iron-shod hooves striking wet soil in unison, hundreds, then thousands, like the beating heart of something enormous and merciless. Ottoman Akıncı, the raiding cavalry of the Sultan, move as one living organism. They are ghosts of the empire's hunger, dressed in layered leather, chain, and silence. From afar, they resemble nothing more than a dark wind, but up close there is order. Banners of red and black snapping against the dawn, scimitars curved like smiles that promise no mercy. Each man rides not to kill, but to capture. Behind every drawn sword is a ledger, an expectation, a promise of profit. Eyewitnesses from Transylvanian villages later wrote that the air trembled before they appeared. One survivor, a priest named Miklos Szegedi, described the first moments of the raid. The sound came like thunder without clouds. The dogs fled, the bells fell silent, then smoke rose where the sun should have been. The Ottoman raiders struck at dawn for a reason. Fear was sharpest in the half-light when people mistook shadow for salvation. They knew the rhythm of life in these villages. When women carried water, when children still slept, when the church doors were unbarred, it wasn't chaos, it was choreography. They swept through the marshlands and farm roads in silence, breaking only when steel met wood, the first door, the first scream. The smell of smoke followed quickly, dry hay and burning flesh rising together, blotting out the horizon. But even then, the killing was measured. The soldiers had orders. Burn what could not be carried. Take what could be sold. The goal was not conquest. It was harvest. Human harvest. Young men were cut down. Resistance wasted time. Women and children were seized, bound by rope in groups of 50, driven eastward like herds of cattle. Soldiers recorded ages, sometimes even hair color, in small notebooks tucked beneath their armor. Each entry was potential profit in the slave markets of Edirne or Istanbul. One captured soldier, later exchanged in a prisoner trade, recalled hearing a Bashi Bazouk, an irregular Ottoman fighter, boast to his comrades, "The true coin is not silver, but skin." Those words, scribbled into his letter home, would later be cited by Venetian diplomats trying to understand how an empire could expand not only by blood, but by bodies. By midday, the villages of southern Hungary were erased, not by cannon or sword, but by systematic collection. A mother's wedding ring melted into the soil where her house once stood. The only thing left behind were footprints, hundreds of them. Small, uneven, dragging eastward, and then silence again. Always silence. From the hills, smoke rose in spirals, dark against the golden light of late morning. Ottoman scouts watched from horseback, marking their success by the absence of motion below. No farmers fled, no bells rang. There was nothing left to warn. In the distance, the main body of the army marched toward Mohacs, where the Hungarian king's fate would soon be sealed. But for the Akıncı, the victory was already won. They had done their part. The fields now yielded their grim bounty. That night, as the sky deepened to ink, the raiders camped along the banks of the Drava River. Fires flickered low, illuminating the outlines of their captives. One soldier, whose diary survived in Ottoman archives, wrote simply, "The night was quiet. Only the children wept." What must it have been like, that stillness? To stand amid smoke and ash, hearing only breathing and the crack of rope? To realize that every sound you made might mark you for sale? In Istanbul, weeks later, the traders' pens would move as swiftly as the raiders' swords. Records show prices for Hungarian girls aged 14 to 18, fetching double the rate of others. The empire did not hide this. It was business, organized, taxed, and sanctified under imperial law. As the embers of that first day's raids cooled, one final rider lingered on a hill, looking back toward the blackened horizon. No one recorded his name. Perhaps even he did not remember it anymore. For those who rode with the wind, identity was a luxury, mercy a cost too high to pay. The chronicles tell us what happened next, how these raids became routine, how the machinery of capture turned into an institution. But in that moment, before the riders vanished into the mist once more, the line between war and commerce blurred forever. History remembers the great battles, the banners, the generals, the treaties, but it often forgets the sound that came after, the soft rustle of chains in the dark, the weeping carried by the wind. And when dawn came again over the steppe, there was no thunder left, only echoes, only smoke, only iron. Morning in Istanbul. The call to prayer fades beneath the hum of commerce. The air is thick with cinnamon, sweat, and salt from the Bosphorus. Sunlight filters through a haze of incense, catching the gold domes of mosques and the silver-threaded veils of merchants' stalls. It looks divine from a distance. But within the marble veins of the empire's capital, divinity had a price. Down a narrow lane near the hippodrome, behind latticed walls, the Avret Pazari, the women's market, begins its day. The ground is washed clean, but not of what lingers. Traders murmur in Turkish, Arabic, and Greek, their voices soft but deliberate, as if afraid that even sound could taint the merchandise. A scribe sits at a cedar table, dipping his pen into dark ink. His ledgers are immaculate, rows of numbers, origins, and brief descriptions. Bosnian girl, 15, unwed. Circassian, fair, speaks little Turkish. Hungarian, strong, good for housework. No names, only categories. Every stroke of his pen removes another life from memory. The first buyers arrive before the second prayer. Wealthy men in robes of silk and fur, soldiers bearing imperial insignia, and occasionally agents of the palace. To them, this market is not scandal. It is structure. It feeds the harems, the estates, the bureaucracy of beauty that sustains an empire built on appearances. In one corner, a woman stands still as a statue. Her wrists are bound with cord, her dress torn at the hem. A merchant lifts her chin with the edge of a quill, examining her eyes like one inspects the glaze of pottery. "From where?" he asks. "Vidin," comes the reply. The merchant nods. Still young, still whole. His assistant notes the detail, his hand moving swiftly. Price negotiable. Condition excellent. For centuries, chroniclers wrote about the grandeur of Istanbul, its gardens, its minarets, its vast palaces. Few dared to describe this. Yet it was here, in the shadow of opulence, that the Ottoman Empire's most intimate form of conquest continued long after the cannons fell silent. The Avret Pazara operated like a machine, licensed by the state, taxed by the treasury, and monitored by the Qadi, the city judge. Each transaction had a receipt, each human body a documented worth. Even the Sultan's court received its share, a fixed percentage of every sale, channeled through the vakuf, the imperial endowment. It was, quite literally, the empire's hidden economy. Eyewitness accounts from Venetian and Genoese travelers describe rooms filled with women sitting in silence, their faces veiled, their bodies positioned under torchlight for inspection. One report mentions the test of patience. a cruel ritual where a woman was made to stand motionless for hours. Her endurance used to estimate her obedience. And beyond the marketplace, in the opulent corridors of Topkapi, the process continued. The most prized captives, those with rare beauty or foreign refinement, were taken to special houses, tamed, and trained in etiquette, language, and the art of submission. The empire called it education. The women knew it as erasure. Records from the imperial harem show lists written in elegant Ottoman script: Aishi, once Katarina; Mihri, once Sophia; Gulnaz, once Anna. Each new name came with a ritual bath, a prayer, and the burning of old garments. Their pasts dissolved like steam. But not all endured in silence. A letter preserved in the Venetian archives, written by a captured Greek woman named Helena, offers a rare, trembling defiance. "They call us by names not ours, but my heart still answers to the one my mother gave me. When they ask me to smile, I remember the sea and let my lips tremble instead. Her fate is unknown." Her letter, smuggled by a servant, survived only because the parchment was later reused to wrap spices. Meanwhile, Istanbul's traders thrived. The demand for beauty was insatiable, and geography became currency. Circassian and Georgian women fetched the highest prices, followed by Slavs and Hungarians. African women were assigned lower value, but their labor built the households that sustained the empire's elite. Even suffering was categorized, balanced, and sold. How many empires, one wonders, can survive by turning the human body into a coin? The irony was cruel. An empire that banned the sale of wine could still sell women beneath its mosques. Clerics debated the legality of such markets, but as long as taxes flowed and the Sultan's house prospered, the morality of flesh remained secondary. There were days when the Avret Pazara overflowed. After campaigns in the Balkans, after raids in the Caucasus, after each new war. The city would darken with foreign tongues and fearful eyes. Even in the opulence of the Grand Bazaar nearby, merchants joked quietly. If you want perfume, buy rosewater. If you want gold, buy silence. By dusk, the market quieted again. The ledgers closed. The unsold were locked behind wooden doors until morning. Outside, the call to prayer echoed once more. The same words that declared mercy, compassion, and faith. Inside, only the shuffle of chains answered back. A few streets away, a muezzin's voice rose clear above the rooftops. Allahu Akbar. The wind carried it over domes and marble courtyards, past the high walls of the harem, into the rooms where women knelt on silken cushions, eyes fixed on stars they could not reach. In the palace kitchens below, a servant extinguished a lamp. The smell of rose oil lingered in the air, faint, sweet, and suffocating. The city slept beneath its illusion of holiness. But in the stillness before dawn, if one listened closely, the Bosphorus carried another sound, soft, rhythmic, like breath caught in a throat. The city was alive, yes, but it was breathing someone else's pain. And as the first light of morning touched the domes, another convoy of captives arrived at the gate. Their footsteps echoed through the marble corridors where the walls themselves seemed to whisper, "Welcome to the Empire of Beauty, paid for in blood." The stones do not speak. Yet in Istanbul's dawn silence, when mist coils through the ruins of a fortress once guarded by janissaries, there's a low hum beneath the earth. It is not wind. It is memory. Centuries have passed since the last chain was dragged through these corridors, yet every gust that sweeps the marble still tastes faintly of iron, salt, and sorrow. From the edge of the Bosphorus to the plains of Rumelia, the empire that once stretched like a golden cloak has become a map of ghosts. Beneath modern roads lie the foundations of slave barracks, their floors still faintly etched with names written by trembling hands, names never entered into ledgers. Women who arrived from Crimea, Circassia, the Balkans, North Africa, their faces erased, their accents silenced, their children absorbed into Ottoman households as servants, soldiers, and wives. The empire they helped build never spoke their names aloud again. In the archives of Topkapi Palace, where dust veils centuries of decree, the truth hides between numbers. Registers filled with neat Arabic script. One girl, fair, 18 years from the north. Each entry a quiet obituary for a life redefined by commerce. For historians, these are only data points, but read closely, and you feel the pulse beneath the ink. Each line marks a mother who sang lullabies in a forgotten tongue, a daughter who prayed to a god her captors renamed. The past never vanishes, it mutates. In small Anatolian towns, genetic studies find traces of Slavic and Caucasian ancestry woven through Turkish bloodlines, silent proof of centuries-old assimilation. Families with blue-eyed grandchildren and pale-haired daughters speak of divine blessing, never realizing those features are echoes of women who were taken, renamed, and absorbed into imperial households. Science uncovers what history concealed, the invisible threads binding oppressor and oppressed in the tapestry of inheritance. The film of time dissolves. The screen fills with the face of a woman, not drawn from a portrait but reconstructed from a skull found beneath an old barracks in Bursa. Her cheekbones are high, her jaw firm, her teeth worn from hard grains. She was young when she died. Perhaps she was among the captives brought through the Avret Pazari, sold to a vizier's household, then discarded when sickness took her. Now, centuries later, forensic modeling gives her back a face, but not a name. Was she a mother? Did she laugh once by the Bosphorus before chains took her laughter away? Did her children grow up in the homes of their masters, calling strangers father? The questions echo like footsteps down a long marble corridor, unanswered yet heavy. Across the Aegean, in Greek monasteries and Venetian records, faint mentions of missing daughters appear beside notations of tribute and war. These were the women swallowed by empire, gifts, ransom, taxes of flesh. Ottoman chroniclers wrote of commerce and faith, never of consequence. The empire's strength, they said, lay in its unity, a unity built on bodies that could no longer remember where they began. Under a starlit dome in Istanbul's Süleymaniye Library, a historian turns the brittle pages of an Ottoman court record. The candlelight flickers, and for a moment, the ink seems wet again. It records a trial. A freedwoman, Fatma, accused of blasphemy. Her defense, "I do not know the words. My tongue is not Turkish." She is punished not for defiance but for remembering. Her silence, too, is a rebellion. Outside, the muezzin's call ripples across the city, the same melody her captors once used to drown her foreign prayers. The air trembles. Shadows spill across the domes and minarets, stretching long and thin, as if the dead themselves are rising with the dawn. Centuries blur into the present. Tourists pass the remnants of slave markets without knowing. Beneath cafes and boutiques lie foundations soaked in histories too dark for postcards. The same marble that once bore shackles now gleams under espresso machines. The irony is exquisite, almost cruel, civilization polishing its own sins until they shine. And yet, even silence leaves fingerprints. Linguists find stray words of Circassian, Georgian, and Albanian woven into Ottoman Turkish, remnants of tongues once forbidden to speak. Songs sung by village women in rural Anatolia trace their melodies back to distant coasts, their sorrow to vanished mothers. The empire consumed them, but could not erase their hum. One woman's lullaby drifts through time, soft, wordless, yet persistent. It lingers in alleys, in prayer calls, in the rhythm of the city itself. Her face may be gone, but her echo endures, in blood, in sound, in the uneasy conscience of a nation that built its glory atop bones. As the camera pans upward, the Bosphorus gleams like liquid silver under moonlight. Ships cross silently where galleys once hauled captives toward the city's heart. Somewhere in that water lies a truth too heavy to lift, that empires die, But the blood they spilled learns to live again. A gust of wind rushes through the ruins, scattering dust across the carved stones. For a fleeting second, the air seems to form a word, not in Turkish, not in Arabic, but in a forgotten dialect of longing. Then it fades into the sea. The scene closes not with music, but with a breath, the quiet inhale of history remembering itself. The camera lingers on the dark water, its reflection broken by ripples that never settle. The ghosts are still here. They never left.